It's official. When we get Brimstone Sands, we're not getting an increase in gear score, and I have some mixed feelings about it. So let's show you and talk about it. So on the forum, basically somebody posted a picture when they crafted it, had like a max gear score of 655, I think it was, right? And they were like, hey, is this a bug or are we getting a gear score increase? And a community manager has responded that it's a visual bug. But one of the key things and a massive thing to me is that there will not be a gear score increase with Brimstone Sands, which is what this says. There won't be a gear score raise coming with Brimstone Sands. And that to me raises some questions. On one hand, I think it's a positive. On the other, I have to wonder, then what are we getting? So let's talk about the positive first. I quite like the fact that the game is almost sort of like casual friendly. The gear score chase, or this like chasing of having better and better gear, not really that relevant. Yes, you obviously want like your best in slot, but the gear that you had from like launch, if it was good, it's still good today because you could have just upgraded it from 600 to 625. Obviously that's providing you got it to like 600 or it was 590 plus in the first place, but you know what I mean. Theoretically, if you got a BIS 600 gear item within the first couple of months, that item is still somewhat relevant now. Now perks have changed and I get it, I understand there has been some changes, but overall there's not been that much gear progression. Going up from 600 to 625 wasn't really gear progression, it was sort of progression through your gear, if that makes sense. I know that doesn't, I'm not really explaining that very well, but it was the gear that you already had and you just upgraded it for the gear score. You didn't get new gear. Now at the time, a lot of people, myself included, thought that having the new gear progression was too much too soon. Like we'd only had the game for about 3 to 4 months, and quite frankly a lot of people were nowhere near 600 gear score, so it felt like it was way too much. And I'm convinced that if they would have done it a couple of months later, it would have been healthier for the game. But I honestly thought that Brimstone Sands would be bringing us some kind of gear progression, probably through gear score is what I anticipated, because we've now not had any kind of real progression in about 7 to 8 months, probably 9 when this patch comes live. And that is starting then to wonder what's the point of the new zone. So let me just clarify. I like the fact that there's no gear progression because I like the no chase, but then what kind of progression are you actually going to have? Because if you had best in slot 9 months ago, then your best in slot will still be relevant today, providing the perk change hasn't like completely messed up your build and stuff like that. So when we get Brimstone Sands, what are we actually going to get? It's going to be a new zone, but with what? It's not even necessarily what's in the zone, it's what's the reason for you to play the zone. Because I think we all like being rewarded for our actions, right? And the obvious reward is better gear. That's generally why a lot of people play MMOs. You get better and better gear as time goes by. Now they might just make it so that it's easier to get best in slot. That would be nice. It would be a nice little catch up. But what are you going to give the players who are 625 best in slot war players right now? They just play wars all the time. What's going to be in that patch? Well, it's not going to be a gear score increase. We know that much. We've just seen it confirmed. And that does raise the question. I literally can't think of anything obvious. You could maybe say, well, maybe there's going to be some kind of cosmetic progression. Something that's not like immediately obvious, but maybe like cosmetics, maybe like gold. And obviously maybe the content itself is quite fun. Maybe they're just going to make Brimstone Sands a PvP zone. Hell, like why not at this point? If there's no gear behind it, then players are very free to just not enter it. But at least we would say, hey, well, at least they're giving us that kind of playstyle. Personally, I don't really like the idea of a PvP zone. I like the toggle of PvP. I just would like more reason to PvP. But if they're not going to tie progression behind a PvP zone, then I think that's sort of okay. And if that's what they're doing, that's what they're doing. But beyond that, I literally can't think how else they would make this zone interesting to players. Yes, people will just do it because it's new content, and new content is fun if you enjoy the game. But I think at some point you sort of need some kind of progression. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit like the new dungeon to me. I haven't entered the depths, and I'm possibly not going to enter Barnacles and Black Powder, or whatever it's called, because why would I? I'm happy enough with my gear. I'm not really chasing anything. I would maybe just do the content for fun, but actually I'd rather just queue into an OPR or something like that. So what is my general point here? Well, I don't really have one. It's more just a confusion, and that I'm not 100% sure what's going to be behind Brimstone Sands. I've got to assume that Amazon have something planned. They're not just going to put a new level 60 zone and be like, yeah, well, it's only really good if you're not level 60 already, because that would just feel really weird. But if we're not getting gear score, what's going to be behind that zone? I just don't know. I enjoy the fact that I don't know. I think that's a good thing, but it's a curiosity and mild concern. But I do probably think it's better than just increasing the gear score just for gear score's sake. Like if they made it so that it was gear score 650, would they then make it so you have to get fresh gear that is dropping at 625 that you then have to upgrade? Or would they make it so you can just get fresh gear that drops at 650 and there's no way of upgrading? Would it make all of your old gear obsolete? There's some very serious questions if you were to do gear score progression like that. But whatever they're doing is going to be very interesting, and I sort of suspect we'll get information about the Brimstone Sands patch within the next week or two. So keep an eye out for that, and if you wanted more information when we do see that, do make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts on what you think we're getting, because I'm a little bit confused. What you should definitely also do is have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.